So let's talk about the big news from late 2025. Anthropic just dropped its latest model, Claude Sonnet 4.5, and, well, it didn't exactly arrive quietly. It came with a very direct, very bold claim that has the entire developer world buzzing. Right there, that one sentence. The best coding model in the world. Now, that's not just some clever marketing slogan. That is a gauntlet being thrown down, and it sets an incredibly high bar for what this new AI is supposed to be able to do. Okay, so a new coding king. Let's really dig into that claim. What exactly is Sonnet 4.5? What is Anthropic promising it can do? And the big question, right? Does it actually live up to all that hype? Let's find out.
Look, this release didn't just appear out of thin air. It's really the latest step in what has been a ridiculously fast-paced year for Anthropic. I mean, think back to May. They launched the 4.0 series, which everyone agreed was a huge leap forward. Then, boom, August comes, and we get Opus 4.1, pushing the boundaries yet again. So Sonnet 4.5 is the next logical, and very rapid, step in that evolution, and it's aimed squarely at enterprise developers and these big autonomous tasks.
So, is it all just talk, or is there some real data to back this up? Well, Anthropic has pointed to some key performance benchmarks, so let's start there. Let's pop the hood. Now, the benchmark you really got to pay attention to here is SWE-Bench. And this isn't some abstract academic test, you know? It measures an AI's ability to solve actual issues from real-world GitHub pull requests. So hitting a score of 77.2%, that's truly state-of-the-art. It shows this thing can outperform its rivals on tasks that are designed to mimic what a human developer actually does, day in and day out. In that jump in practical ability, it gets even clearer when you look at the OS World benchmark. This thing tests how well the model can actually use a computer, running file operations, using the command line, that kind of stuff. Going from a 44% success rate to over 61%, that's not a small bump. That is a massive leap. It shows the model isn't just better at writing code, it's getting way better at executing it in a real computing environment.
30 hours. Just let that number sink in for a second. That's the headline figure for how long Sonnet 4.5 can work on a task completely on its own. This is a huge deal. The previous flagship model, Opus 4.1, it topped out at around 7 hours. So this is a more than fourfold increase. That's what makes these long, complex, multi-day coding projects suddenly seem feasible for an AI agent.
And that 30-hour number, it leads us to a really crucial point. We need to stop thinking about these models as just glorified code autocompleters. Sonnet 4.5 is being positioned as a true AI agent, a system that can take a high-level goal and just run with it, executing a complex workflow over a long period to get it done. So when we throw around this term AI agent, this is what we're talking about. It's not just answering one prompt at a time. No, it's a system that can plan, that can use tools like a web browser or a command line, manage its own working memory, and stay focused on a single goal for hours or maybe even days. So how does it pull off that 30-hour marathon? Anthropic has given Sonnet 4.5 a whole new suite of agent-like abilities. It's much better at juggling multiple tools. It can run tasks in parallel, so think firing off multiple web searches at once to find an answer faster. And critically, it's more aware of its own context window, which means it's less likely to get lost or forget the mission halfway through. And this new memory tool, which is still in beta, is a key piece of the puzzle. It's basically like giving the AI long-term memory. It can save its progress, key findings, and important context to an external file. This means it can effectively pick up a project right where it left off, even across different sessions. And for any task that takes more than a single sitting, well, that's a total game changer. When a release this significant drops, it is bound to cause some ripples. It's going to shake up the competitive landscape and put a lot of pressure on the other major players. So how does Sonnet 4.5 really stack up against the competition? This paints such a fascinating picture, and it's not as simple as Sonnet 4.5 being universally better. It's all about trade-offs. Sonnet is reportedly much, much faster, which makes it great for that day-to-day interactive kind of coding. But OpenAI's GPT-5 Codex, while it's slower and cheaper, is still seen by some as the heavyweight you bring in for the most difficult, high-stakes bug hunts. And you have to love the vibe comparison. Sonnet as your helpful AI colleague versus Codex as the brilliant but grumpy senior engineer. So yeah, this move definitely turns up the heat on everyone else. These reports that Claude models are now beating GPT-5 on certain coding benchmarks, they're just fueling this intense AI arms race. And while that creates a ton of pressure for the companies involved, the ultimate winner is the developer community, right? We're the ones who get access to more powerful and more specialized tools. Okay, benchmarks are one thing, but the real test is always what happens when these models get into the hands of developers working on actual projects. And the initial feedback, it's been pretty varied and really, really insightful.
So here's the optimistic tick. Some users feel that Sonnet 4.5's clarity and reliability make it feel less like a tool you have to wrestle with and more like a genuine collaborator. The idea here is that because its output is so clean, you spend less time fixing its dumb mistakes and more time applying your own high-level expertise. It feels like teamwork.
But, and there's always a but, right? Not everyone is convinced. Here's a quote from a developer who ran into a real-world bug. For their specific problem, this new, supposedly superior Sonnet 4.5 actually struggled, while the older, more expensive Opus 4.1 model nailed it immediately. It's just a powerful reminder that benchmarks don't always capture the messy reality of every coding problem.
And this really brings us to a more pragmatic, kind of nuanced view. In a head-to-head code review, Sonnet 4.5 was way faster. But GPT-5 Codex, even though it was slower, managed to sniff out a subtle, hard-to-spot edge case that Sonnet completely missed. And this just points again to a future where developers are going to choose their AI tool based on the specific job they need to get done.
So what's the big takeaway here? The launch of Claude Sonnet 4.5 is about so much more than just a new model with better stats. It really pushes us to ask a bigger question. Are we building sharper, more autonomous tools that we direct from a distance? Or are we developing true AI colleagues that we collaborate with side by side? The answer probably isn't one or the other, but a whole spectrum in between. And where we all land on it is going to define the future of how we build software.